Hi there, welcome back to my channel, The Fear Factory. This is part 3, 4, and the final part of the story. My job is watching a woman trapped in a room. Last time, we left off on a suspenseful part of the story, part 1 and 2. Please watch the first part of this on my channel if you want to catch up on what's happening. Honestly, it was great, and I love the writing. And now, let's begin. She hesitated a moment before breaking into a smile. Is that what you call me? I like it. My name is actually Melanie, though. I felt my face reddening. Of course, her name wasn't actually Rachel. That's just something I made up in my head. Still, my embarrassment couldn't keep both of my confusion and joy. Is it really you? She nodded. Yeah, it's me. Rachel, Melanie grunted as I stepped forward and started hugging her. Laughing, she hugged me back for a moment, but then she whispered in my ear, Thomas, we need to talk, and not out here. Can we go inside? I broke away and nodded, wiping in my eyes as I tried to finish unlocking the door with a shaking hand. My heart was pounding and I still felt like I was in a strange and wonderful dream. But when we had gone inside and sat down on my living room sofa, I forced myself to focus on the biggest question I had. How? Melanie had still been smiling as we sat down, but now she looked worried and sad. Thomas, that's what I'm here to tell you. Things aren't like you think they are. They never have been. I frowned, a new line of fear cutting through my happy haze. What do you mean? She held the bridge of her nose for a moment, looking down like she was trying to figure out how to say whatever it was she had to say. Thomas, you're part of a psychological experiment. I've been a part of it for longer than you have as one of the actors, and I still don't know all the details. I'm pretty sure it's run by some government agency, and I know they're investing a lot of money and time into it, but for what reason? That I'm not so sure. I realized I was wringing my hands. No, that wasn't right. It couldn't be right. This was some kind of trick. Melanie went on. What I do know is that you're being watched as a long-term subject. They have constructed this whole scenario where you do a secret job watching someone. Me, who looks like they might be trapped. They give you instructions and a way of making choices. You've got buttons or something you can choose between, right? I nodded weakly, my tongue thick in my throat. Yeah, a red one and a green one. She sighed and nodded. I think they're testing how much you obey, what choices you make based off of your morals, your intelligence, and your fear. It's interesting, or at least I thought so when I first joined up 6 years ago. They've never officially given me any details, just the overall gist, but people talk. The other actors and me sometimes we hear things and we gossip. She smiled sadly. That's what caused me to start feeling bad. I interrupted. Other actors? Melody's eyes widened. Ah, shit. Yeah, sorry. I think they still call him Mr. Solomon. And there are others too. When I just stared at her, she went on. Anyways, for a long time it was just the normal job, right? I spent 6 hours a day acting like I'm this trapped girl, mainly faking painting or watching TV, boring stuff. I couldn't help but interrupt again, hating the hurt trembling in my voice. You faked the painting? You aren't really painting those wonderful pictures? Now Melanie looked embarrassed. No, sorry. I can't paint a bit. I'm a pretty good singer though. She tried to smile but faltered. Reaching forward, she touched my arm. That's why they always have the paintings turned when you can't see them. They're already done beforehand. All you ever see is some blank canvases and, well, when they want me to show you something, her expression darkened as she went on. That's why I had to break the rules and contact you. When they started doing this hidden message, mind game bullshit, I got worried. Worried you would take it too serious. That you could get hurt or even hurt yourself. As soon as you left your shift tonight, I talked to one of the guys in the video department. He told me how you had reacted, showed me how you were still parked down the street from the building. I drove over. The bedroom set is in a building outside of town. I saw you sitting in your car and I almost approached you then, but I was scared of getting caught and fired, so I parked and waited until I could follow you somewhere else and let you know I was okay. She blinked back tears. I'm ashamed to say I almost left a couple of times. I don't want to lose this job, and I tried to tell myself you would be okay after a day or two. I could get them to change the script enough that you feel like I was okay, and wouldn't worry too much. I feel like angry heat growing in my chest. Well, that's nice of you. She looked up, her eyes red. I know, I'm a shit. I'm so sorry. I was being selfish and cowardly, but I didn't actually leave. And then, when I saw Charlie leaving the building, saw you running over to talk to him, I knew they were escalating it even further. Charlie? Melanie rolled her eyes in frustration. Shit! Yeah, sorry. Charlie Jeffries. He's an actor in an earlier version of the experiment. He actually played Mr. Solomon, but they decided he wasn't scary enough, so now he's usually one of the suits. He's actually done that for your version a lot. You just can't recognize him under all that getup they wear. I kept curling and uncurling my hands on my lap. It was all too much. I felt like a pinball going between anger and relief and embarrassment and confusion. So all the stuff he told me, it was all just to scare me, see how'd I react? She nodded as she sniffled and wiped her nose with the back of her hand. Yes, I'm sorry. That's why I knew I couldn't wait any longer to tell you. I could see how worried and scared you were going back to your car. I pulled my arm back from her touch. Well, thanks, I guess. At least you stopped me before I went to the police and looked like a joke in front of them too. I just wanted her gone, her sympathetic, pitying eyes off of me. Thanks for stopping by and letting me in on it. I tried to make my voice sound hard and unfeeling, but it came out watery instead. Standing up, I turned away from her so she couldn't see as I started to cry. If you don't mind, I need time to think about everything. It's a lot. A moment passed and then her hand was on my shoulder. Thomas, you don't have anything to be embarrassed about. They're very good at what they do. All you did was what you thought was right, because you're a good man. I shrugged. Thought you were in trouble and I wanted to help. She gently turned me towards her, and when I looked up, she smiled and sniffed again. I know, but you need to realize most people wouldn't have tried to help. Not when it meant giving up their job and risking them themselves like that. Not for a stranger. I wiped my face as I looked away. Well, I still feel dumb, but I'm glad it's not real. I'm glad you're okay, and that we both are. I paused and caught her eye again. We are, aren't we? Safe, I mean. She hesitated before nodding. Yeah, I think so. Like I said, they have a lot invested in whatever this is, and the fact that they're willing to go as far as they have with you makes me wonder, but I've never seen any signs of anyone getting hurt. I think the worst that could happen is one or both of us getting fired. I felt my face getting red again. Oh, don't worry about that. I'm going to quit tomorrow. I finally get to hit their damn buttons. Maybe both of them. I started to smile, but then I saw the look on Melanie's face. Thomas, please don't do that. I don't think they would hurt us, but if you up and quit, they'll figure out I've talked to you. I don't think they'll watch us all the time, but I don't know what they can find out. You know, tracking cell phones, spy satellites, whatever. I'm taking a big risk just being here. I don't want them catching on. I took a step back from her. So you want to keep getting paid to trick people like me? She reached out and grabbed my right hand. I had been clenching it uncautiously, and it relaxed at her touch. No, I don't want to, but I wasn't expecting this. how the experiment has changed. Getting to actually meet you, I can't do it long term, but another month or two to save up money? Now that you're in on it, and I won't be scared or hurt by it anymore. She smiled. That I can do. That we can both do. We can keep going on like normal. Take some more of their money, and then one of us can quit. The next month, the other one can. How does that sound? I shrugged uncertainly. It made some sense, and once I had calmed down, it would probably make more. She gave my hand a squeeze. And when this is all over, I want to get to know you better. I know I've been playing a role, but for the most part, that's been me you've been watching all this time. I think it's only fair I get to see more of you too. She blushed. Assuming you're interested in that. I felt my hand growing clammy in hers as my stomach fluttered. Well, I mean, yeah, I would really like that. Swallowing. I added, how long do we have to wait to see each other again? Melanie grinned at me. Work another month or so. Save what you can, and then quit. I'll wait another 2 or 3 weeks, and then I'll do the same. And then... She looked up at the ceiling as she pondered it for a moment, and I was struck again by how beautiful she was, even if she was a little different in person than I had imagined. 3 months from tonight, we will meet right here. I'll come over and we can start getting to know each other better. How does that sound? Returning her smile, I nodded. That sounds great. When she left a couple of minutes later, part of me hated to see her go, but another part was relieved. I was so exhausted, and while I was happy she was okay and we had finally met, I felt like the burned up wire in an old light bulb. I needed time alone. Time to think and calm down. And most of all, time to rest. I didn't even remember falling asleep, and when I woke up, I realized my alarm had been buzzing for over 30 minutes. I jumped up and raced to get to my shift at work, as she had been leaving. Melanie has stressed again how we needed to act completely the same. That meant not freaking out, but it also meant not acting like everything was okay either. If I suddenly showed no signs of being worried about her, that would tip him off too. I promised, and she left after a brief hug and kiss. Remembering that now, through the haze of my tiredness the night before, it felt like a dream. Still, I went into the surveillance room with a much lighter heart. I didn't have to worry or feel guilty anymore about not helping her, and there was some satisfaction in finally pulling one over on the people that had tricked me for so long. Besides, in 3 months, I would be done with this place and get to see Melanie again. In person, at least. Because I got to watch her on video feed as soon as I came into work. She was asleep when I first got there, and I found myself wondering if she was tired as I still felt. When she woke up later and started reading a book, I found myself beginning to smile and had to stop myself. I should still be worried. Acting, not smile like I had a crush. I had to do better so Melanie couldn't get in trouble. An hour or so later, she started working on another of her paintings. Watching her work, I was amazed at how real it all looked. It was hard to see everything from my angle, but I would have sworn she had paint on those brushes and was really painting whatever it was on the canvas. I found myself feeling proud of her. She really was a great actress. Not only didn't I see her giving any clues that we had met or talked, but she really did seem different in the room than she had in my apartment. I suppose that's what she meant by playing a role. I was almost at the end of my shift, and while I hated to leave her, I had to admit that I was ready for some more sleep. Trying to guard my reactions all day has been exhausting, and I was dreading the next few weeks. But then I realized she was done painting. I expected her to just go and do something else, but instead she picked up the canvas at its edge and carefully walked over to the sofa. Her body was blocking it at first, but then she stepped aside. It was a painting of a massive tree. The bark was dark red with a huge twisting trunk that broke off into a dozen branches. Those branches were covered in leaves that were so deep green they almost reminded me of storm clouds more than the top of a tree. Like all the paintings, I felt touched by it. Even now that Melanie had told me she didn't paint them, the images themselves, combined with the colors and the small details, they really were amazing. Just like this one, if you look close enough, you can see that there were several small blackbirds and branches of the trees. It was funny, but they almost looked like they were it almost looked like they were made out of words. I felt my heart start to hammer and I forced myself to stay calm. No point in being silly. I knew it was all a game now. I just had to play my part a little longer. Still, the worried me would want to know what the words said, so might as well try to read them. I squinted, following the words left to right and top to bottom. That girl isn't me. I looked away from the painting to see Damn, what a twist. I mean, the whole part 3, he was talking to a fake or an actress. He looked like, he felt like he was pulling one over the government agency, but they were one step ahead. I'm excited on what comes on the part 4 and 5 of this. I want to know if it's truly Melanie or it's just all part of an act. Let's get on to part. I had to do something, and I had to do it right now. If Melanie was somehow a fake, that meant they must have sent her. And if they sent her, that means they knew. They knew about the messages in her painting. They knew about me asking questions, and they knew I didn't hit a button during any of it. I felt panic and fear crawling up my chest, making it hard to breathe. Standing up, I started pacing, periodically glancing back at the monitors to see if Rachel could help me, tell me what I needed to do next, but she had laid down on her bed. It was hard to tell for sure, but with her back on the camera, but I think she was crying. No, I needed to fix this, get her out of here, and if I didn't have a better plan, I just have to go with the one I already had. Feeling the hard eye of the ceiling camera on me, I went to the door and stepped back into the locker room. My phone was in my locker, and after messing up the combination the first time, I got the door open and got it out. Gripping it tightly, I tried to hold it by my side casually, but I knew there was a little point. If they knew everything, I wasn't going to be able to hide anything. I just had to try and be fast, get some kind of message out to people that could help Rachel before they got to me. I opened the camera on the phone as I re-entered the surveillance room and hit record. It made a small beeping noise, and once I made sure it was recording, I turned the camera onto myself. My name. My name is Tommy. Thomas Calhoun. And my job is watching a woman trapped in a room. This is not a joke or a movie or whatever. This is real. For 3 years, my job is to sit in this room. I moved the camera slowly around the room, taking in the doors to the bathroom, the water cooler, the desk with the monitors, keyboard, and button box, and watched video feed of a woman locked up in a bedroom somewhere. I stepped closer to the desk and make sure the monitor showing Rachel was clear and I'm focused. I didn't know this woman was a prisoner at first, or I tricked myself into thinking she wasn't because the money was good. Either way, I know she is now. She is in danger, and so am I. After lingering on the video of her for a few more seconds to make sure every detail could be seen, I turned the camera back onto myself. I had to hurry or the video might be too big to send quickly. I was trying to stay calm, but I felt myself tearing up as I went on, and I did my best to keep my words clear. Please, help her. I don't know where she is. I don't know who has her, because I don't know who I really work for. But they are bad people and she's not safe. All I know is that I work at a building at Redacted, right, right outside of San Antonio. I know the names of 2 other people connected to this place. The man who hired me, Mr. Solomon, and a man who might have a job like mine. Jeffries, I think. I don't know if they're real people. I mean, I don't know if that is their real names. Please, I'm not crazy. I know how this sounds. Just come here, see the room, figure out where she is, and help her. And I heard the muffled sound of the outer door opening into the locker room, and I frantically fumbled with the phone to stop the recording. How do I send? Oh no, how do I? There it is. I hit the button to share and felt a new panic rising. Who should I send it to? I had only a handful of contacts and I just selected them all. Maybe at least one of them would take it seriously and get help. As I heard the door to the surveillance room opening behind me, I hit send. Not connected to data service or Wi-Fi. Please send again when connected. What? No, 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 no. I turned to see Mr. Solomon entering the room. He was flanked by two large men in dark suits that looked like bodyguards or something. Raising a finger, he wagged at me. No service in here, Thomas. But then you should never need service in here so long as you follow the rules. They took me easily. I tried to make it to the bathroom and close the door, but the two guards stopped me and pulled me down. They put the, what do you call them? Zip ties in my hand and feet and pulled a black bag over my head. Then I was being carried out of the room, and it felt like they must have put me in the back of a van that was pulled right up to the building. I was laying on what felt like thin, weird smelling carpets that covered a hard metal layer underneath. I heard someone get into the van with me, and I asked where we were going, if they would just take me and let Rachel go. There was a short laugh overhead, and then Mr. Solomon's voice as he told me he would explain everything when we got to where we were going. For now, he said, I needed to relax. It was a long drive and I would need the rest. I went to say more, but then I felt a sharp pain in my neck. They had stabbed me or no, they injected me with something. I was feeling so strange now, but I had to stay awake. I tried to get the way I had to. Hello again, Thomas. I blinked again as I began looking around. My mouth was dry and my head hurt, but otherwise I felt okay. I wasn't tied up anymore. Instead, I was laying on a padded table like I'd seen when I went to the doctor. But this wasn't a doctor's office. The room was large, and aside from the padded table, it held a small bed, a desk with a computer monitor on it, and a couple of chairs. Sitting on one of these chairs was Mr. Solomon. I raised up slowly, blinking at him. Where is she? Is Rachel okay? The man smiled. You really are something, Thomas. Trying to be the hero, even if you don't quite know how. I respect that, licking his lips as he leaned forward slightly. In fact, I respect that so much that I've decided to start our new relationship with as much honesty as I'm allowed. Some of my colleagues disagree with this approach, but you know what? Fuck them. This is my project, and I think you deserve to know what's going on. Looking more serious, he stood up, lifting a gun he had been holding casually on his lap. But before we get into the details, would you like to see Rachel? I slid off the table and nodded as I caught myself from falling. My legs were still wobbly from whatever they had given me, but I barely noticed. Yes, please, let me see her. The real her. Mr. Solomon gave a small laugh and gestured towards a nearby door. Yes, reality is always best. She's just there in the next room. I stumbled my way forward, my legs getting better as I walked, and when I grabbed the doorknob, it turned easily. I expected the door to lead to her bedroom, but instead it opened into another room, a lot like the one I had been in, though the stuff in it was different. Strange machines filled the walls, and in the back of the room was a large aquarium? I didn't know. It was a big cylinder taller than I was, and it was filled with some kind of gray liquid. There was a shape to that liquid. Go ahead, Thomas. Feel free to have a good look. You've earned it. I felt my stomach clenching tighter and Mr. Solomon's word and the meanness in them. My legs felt heavy again now. but it wasn't from the drugs this time. Shuffling forward, I could see the shape was a person. Oh no, or at least a body, because it was clear from looking at it that the person was dead. It was very well preserved, but I could see how the skin hung wrong and low bloated in spots. Oh god, no, no, no. Its hair, which has been floating like semen in front of its face, drifted away as I reached the glass, and I could see Rachel staring out at me. Murderer! I turned on Solomon and started to run towards him when he shot me. Suddenly, I was on the floor convulsing as he stepped closer. Don't worry, Thomas. It won't kill you, just make you unable to move much for a bit. I heard more footfalls as my body began to still. Get him up. Take him back to the other room. I could barely feel anything as I was carried back to the padded table and propped up into a sitting position. This time I was strapped down, but I guess it was more so I didn't fall off because I couldn't move anything other than my head, and even that, just a little. I could hardly see at all for crying, but I recognized the blurry shape of Solomon sitting back down in front of me. Before you ask, well, when you are able to ask anything again, yes, that is Rachel, not a fake Rachel, not a dummy, and not some kind of trick. As I said, the time for tricks is past. Now it's time for truth. Frowning slightly, he went on, Thomas, I understand that showing you her body that way might seem very cruel. You may hate me for it right now, but I would understand it if you did. But you called me a murderer, and at least in this specific context, I think that's unfair. Because I didn't kill Rachel. In truth, I've been this aspect of the project for only 7 years. He gestured back to the door behind him, and Rachel has been dead over 8. I felt my eyes widen as though they had belonged to someone else's body. It was more lies, more tricks, all of it. Oh god, it had to be. Do you know what remote viewing is? He rolled his eyes. Sorry, right. You can't talk right now. I'll just assume you don't. Remote viewing is a broad term for the ability to see things that are far away from you physically, to know things you shouldn't be able to know through your normal 5 senses. Some describe it as a psychic ability, though there are several schools of thought as to how and why it works. His eyes fixed on mine intently. Because it does work, Thomas, when various governments and private organizations have studied it for a very long time, and while publicly it has always been ridiculed as pseudoscience and foolish superstition, the reality is that some people had the innate ability. That means it comes naturally to see other places. Rachel was one of those people. She came into the program while she was 17 and had been identified via front-facing screening process that was ran as a psychological test that paid subjects well at a time when Rachel was looking to make some money. 3 months after being identified as a good candidate, she was taken, and after an initial adjustment period, she became a largely compliant asset that rose quickly to the top of her talent pool. Solomon folded his hands on his knees. I know you cared for her, Thomas, so I think this is worth sharing. Rachel was never treated badly, other than her confinement and the occasional test that was mildly unpleasant. No, we all treasured her. She was enormously talented, not just as a remote viewer, but as an artist. That's how she would convey what she saw. You understand, she would enter into an almost trance-like state when she painted, and when she was done, she would have given us a painting of images and words that provided, well, it was very valuable information. He chuckled. If you ever wondered, that's why there was always such care that the paintings were never shown to the cameras. Picking at his pants, he went on. Rachel was so talented that she was selected for a new program that we thought might greatly enhance or alter her ability. We introduced something foreign into her body. At first, nothing seemed to change. If anything, the accuracy of her remote viewing was declining, which was a problem for us and for her. But then we realized that we were reading the new paintings wrong. She was able to see more clearly than ever. She was just no longer bound to only current events. Now that her sight transcended time, he paused, and I realized he was enjoying telling the story. The bastard was having a good time, pausing to make it more dramatic. I would fucking kill him. While this made some of her paintings less immediately useful, they became much more valuable as we were able to decipher them. For a time, it looked as though everything was working better than we had ever hoped. His lips thinned, and then one day she showed us a painting to the camera. It said, "Please help me, Thomas." This immediately sent up all kinds of red flags. She knew not to show paintings to the camera, and now she was trying to communicate with someone. We didn't disrupt her routine, but an intensive investigation began into whom she was talking to. Was it one of her handlers? One of the technicians? Someone from her past life? But nothing checked out. Leaning back in his chair, a look of pride grew on Solomon's face as he continued. I was the one that first suggested the idea that she was, intentionally or not, knowingly or not, seeing and talking to someone in the future. I was still an outside consultant at the time, but by that point we had more strange behaviors from her, including a second message painting. That girl isn't me. My theory made some sense, but it very quickly ran into a greater obstacle. The introduction of the foreign material had not been as seamless as we had hoped. Despite her having been stable for almost 3 years since it was implanted, whether it was due to her increasing emotional upsets and stress, or simply the passage of time, she suddenly began to deteriorate. Her work became more and more erratic and hard to understand as her body began to decline. We were monitoring her health closely, but it didn't matter. 5 days after she painted That Girl Isn't Me, she suddenly went into cardiac arrest and died. Somewhat inexplicably, we were unable to resuscitate her. The man sighed. This was a great loss, and it required adjustment of my theory. Based on everything we knew, it still made sense that she was talking to someone with access to the camera feed, very likely someone named Thomas. If Thomas was viewing that camera footage in the future as I believed, then he must be working for us in the future. He gave me a thin smile, and whether you believe that the future is set in stone or not, I'm all for giving it a helping hand. 7 years ago, I began the Thomas Project. Over the course of that time, I have overseen the screening and hiring of 43 men named Thomas at different sites, all with one very specific job: to watch the video of Rachel from just before her implants to the time of her death. I tried to speak, but my mouth still wouldn't work. I wanted to say he was lying, that it didn't make sense, that it was another trick, but I think I wanted to hear it more for myself because I didn't think he was lying. I didn't think it was trick, and I thought I was starting to understand. The point wasn't really them watching the videos, of course. It was how they reacted to watching the videos, what they did, and how that matched up with what Rachel had done in response to the past. 13% quit after the first day, 38% hit either the red or green button after the first message asking for help and saying their name. 22% attempted to contact authorities before reaching the stage where Melanie was introduced. He shook his head slightly. I wish I could take credit for her introduction, but it wasn't my suggestion. We assumed from the That Girl Isn't Me message that there was a double of Rachel introduced to you at some point, perhaps to kill you or dissuade you, or find out what you knew. But it only took a few tries until we felt like it was well refined. And as I've pointed out, only 27% made it that far. And all of them failed the next test. He pointed at me. Her name. You see, the girl you've been watching, that talented, wonderful girl whose body's preserved in the next room, her name was Rachel Donovan. I had always wondered if Rachel was merely seeking you, or if there's some kind of connection between the two of you. When you called Melanie Rachel, I knew that we had finally found the right Thomas, the distant point of light that our Rachel was looking at across the space and time. I swallowed thickly and found I could feel my tongue, if only a little, slurring badly. I pushed out a single word. Why? Solomon looked surprised. I'd have thought that would be clear by now. You're our only remaining link to our greatest treasure. Perhaps you have a similar ability, or it may be that she forged the link purely through her own talent and will. But either way, you are important and you have more work to do. He stood up and moved over to the table where he turned on the monitor. As it came to life, I saw it was a frozen image of Rachel's room, a taped pause where I had left off watching. Turning back to me, the man looked solemn. You have to watch the rest of it because. And that was the end of part 4. Um, I don't know how I feel about this. It all started from a creepy, like, mysterious thing, and now it turned into supernatural. I don't know. Like, for me personally, I don't like that when creepy things just turn supernatural all of a sudden. Well, part 5, the final part, we're gonna find out what's going on and see if this becomes more and more creepy. Let's. I spent the next 5 days watching Rachel die. From the outside, just watching the monitor, it didn't seem that different than what I had been watching for the past 3 years. Rachel slept, she watched TV, she read, and she painted, but there were signs if we were looking for them. She seemed tired and tense. She had taken to sleeping more, and occasionally, just every once in a while, she would glance up at the camera, at me. It was then that I could see the fear and sadness in her eyes. Inside, well, inside I felt like a burned out house collapsing in on itself. At first, I refused to watch, to do anything they wanted me to do. Solomon didn't get mad at me, but just shrugged. He said while incorporation was preferred and could go a long way towards making my stay with them more comfortable, it wasn't required. If he was right, Solomon said with a thin smile, things would play out as they were meant to, regardless of what I wanted or thought I'd choose. Either way, he added, the video was about to start playing and would not stop for another 5 days. Whether I wanted to spend that time getting to see her again was entirely up to me. I tried not to watch, but a part of me knew from the start I was going to. Maybe I would find some clue that they were lying about her being dead, or Rachel could give me some advice or warning about what I needed to do next. I didn't know. What I did know is that I couldn't miss the chance to see her again, and despite knowing in my heart that she was dead and everything on the video had happened a long time ago, I still felt that by watching I was with her somehow. She had been taken away from everything she knew when she was barely grown, trapped for years just for being special, experimented on, treated like property, kept from ever having friends or family or a life. And yet through all that, she was still beautiful, not just on the outside, but on the inside too. I had spent years watching her, getting to know her in 1,000 tiny ways that so few people ever truly know each other. I had seen her kindness and grace in her actions. Even when she was fighting against the people holding her, I had watched her strength when she woke up day after day in her prison and never gave up. And I saw the beauty of her soul in her paintings, full of swirling colors and, what was the word? Wonder. She was able to paint these things she saw with such care and love, despite living in a world that had abandoned her so completely. Well, I wasn't abandoning her. I would watch every bit of the video I could manage, try to burn into my memory every frame of her I saw. Not for them and their stupid project, but for me and for her. I may not have much left to do in my life before they lock me away somewhere or kill me, but I could do this one last thing. Rachel wouldn't die alone. I watched nearly all of it, stopping only to eat quickly and use the bathroom until the last 2 days. I would ask the guards to pause it, but they would only shake their heads and say Solomon said it had to play normally until it was finished. By the 4th day, I was in a stupor. I had already dozed some the first 3 days, but when I woke up on the 4th day, I could tell a few hours had passed. There were 2 trays of food on the bed, one breakfast and another lunch. I looked back at the screen in a panic, worrying I had missed something, but Rachel seemed to be just waking up too. I noticed her putting her hand to her stomach as she got out of bed and felt my own stomach twist. She was already hurting. Rachel glanced at the camera and tried to smile before moving to set up a new canvas for painting. This was the second of 3 paintings she did in those last days. The first had been the insides of old-fashioned movie theater from the viewpoint of someone sitting in the back row. On the movie screen was just the image of sledgehammer propped against the brick wall. I didn't understand what it meant, and I found myself scanning the pictures for some message or other clue. Eventually, I found what might be one, though I didn't understand it either. Rachel must have come to understand they knew what she was doing the paintings and didn't want to stop her. Because the last 3 she set up much closer to the camera, I was still squinting and studying the painting closely when I realized the flipped up seats in the next row up had brass number plates along the front edge of the seats. Though they were upside down from the viewpoint of the painting, the angle was good enough that once I noticed them, I was able to read them. 2, 43, 26, 89. I didn't understand any of it, but I committed it all to memory, focusing all my attention on the painting until she finally took it away. Even that early on, I could tell painting was taking a lot out of her now, and like I had for so long, I found myself talking to her, letting her go to rest before I remembered her body in the next room. I almost stopped then, but no. Maybe she couldn't tell I was talking to her, or maybe she could. Either way, me talking to her couldn't hurt, and it made me feel a little less lonely and sad as I watched her. The second painting, the one she started right after I woke up from falling asleep for a few hours, was stranger than the rest. It looked like it was in a room with curved walls made of tree roots, and in the center of the room was a little table made out of the same stuff. Some of the roots around the room were deep red, but other parts, including the table thing, looked burnt and black. I looked closer and saw that I could see a person's shadow over the table, holding hands with some long oval-shaped bundle. I studied it for a long time, going over it again and again in my mind after she took it away. I couldn't make sense of it, or any of it. I wasn't smart enough, and I was failing her. Rachel slept for a long time after that painting. Then she got up on the 5th day, her last day, and immediately started working again. This time she was painting faster, and while I saw her wince occasionally, she never lost her look of determination as she slashed the line and colors across the canvas. When she was done, Rachel picked up the painting and turned it towards the camera, giving me a small, tired smile as she was blocked from the view. It was looking out from the front porch of a house somewhere. It was out in the country, and the morning view of the yard and the land beyond were wonderful, but closer up, the painting was of 2 hands, holding onto each other tightly. Their interlocked fingers seemed to glow red and orange in the light of the rising sun. I found myself crying as I looked at it. Part of it was because I didn't know what it meant, and I felt a growing sense of desperation at the thought that Rachel's last works might be wasted on me. Part was because I knew it had been 5 days, and I could sense I was close to the end. To her end. But there was something more to it than all that too. The last painting, even with everything else on my head and my heart pulling me down, gave me hope. Hope of what? I didn't know, but I started to think that maybe the only message Rachel had for me in the last painting was that somehow, somewhere, everything would be okay. Outside the edge of the painting, I could see motion in the room. People hurriedly coming in with some kind of medical equipment, and then the monitor went black. You've done well, Thomas. Very, very well. For the last 5 days of video, we had charted 1,047 micro variations of Rachel behavior that we believe might correspond to your behavior, your reactions, and your emotional states while watching the video. Like before, the 2 of you remained in sync as though you were in the same room. It really is remarkable. I sat, staring at Solomon. I listened to what he said, but I didn't care. I just wanted it over. Whatever this was, I just wanted it over. Clearing his throat, he went on. That's why we've decided to move the implant from Rachel's body to your own. That's one of the many reasons we've preserved her so the foreign body was still showing signs of life all this time, but just barely. We were afraid to attempt removal. Our hope is that, given your connection to Rachel, it will accept you, perhaps even thrive in you more than it ever did our girl. I was suddenly on my feet, and it was the only reason of Solomon's gun that stopped me from attacking him. Don't you fucking talk about her like that. Like any of you gave a shit about her, I'll fucking kill you. Solomon's face darkened slightly as his lips thinned. No, you won't. But if idle threats makes you feel better, go ahead. It will only make things harder, not easier. Feeling a stab of panicked fear, I sat back down. What is this thing you're going to put in me? The man looked at me for several seconds before responding. I'm tempted not to tell you after your stupid and frankly hurtful outburst, but I'll be the bigger person. Letting out a small sigh, he went on. Thomas, somewhere there is a tree. A very special tree. We suspect it's the same tree that Rachel painted for you that time, though we cannot say for sure as we've never been able to find it. It is either hidden away very well, or it is able to hide itself from those it wishes. I just looked at him, trying to kill him by just wanting it to be so. In any case, we have the next very best thing. An ancient clipping from the tree, secured at great cost and sacrifice, and studied for a long time without much success. We have, however, in recent years been given advice that this clipping could be grown in the right soil. We thought that soil was Rachel, but while it did develop further inside of her, she died before the necessary growth was finished. Leaning forward, he smiled at me. We have it on fairly good authority, however, that you might succeed where she failed. I fought them when they came, but it didn't matter. I woke up sometime later with a dull ache on my chest and a small, already healing scar in my upper stomach. I didn't really feel that different other than the little bit of pain, but I knew that would change with time. But I had more time than Rachel, or maybe I had less. It didn't matter, Wait, what was that? There was some soft voice coming from where? It wasn't in the room, it was in my head. I felt a thrill of excitement. Maybe this was Rachel's voice. She had somehow stayed in the tree thing they had put inside of me. But no, I had never heard Rachel's voice, but I sensed this wasn't it. This voice was too delicate and to be heard or understood. And it reminded me of music coming from a distant room that you felt in the back of your mind without realizing it. It was a melody, a kind of a song, but it wasn't Rachel's song. I realized with a shiver that it was a song of the thing inside of me. At first, I was afraid, but that didn't last long. It wasn't trying to hurt me. It was trapped here just like I was, but it started to sing. It was time for us to be free. I stood up and walked to the door, and as I did so, the lights went out. The door in front of me clicked, and when I reached out and turned the knob in the dark, it opened easily. How was this possible? And if it could do this, why hadn't it helped Rachel get out? There was no answer, but there was also no time. I could already hear boots around the corner as the glow from flashlights began to light up the far end of the hall. They would drag me back in here, chain me up, or take this thing back out of me before we could get away. If I was ever going to get out, it had to be now. The voice was singing again, pushing me to go further into the dark, to run until we're safe. So I listened, and I ran. Every door unlocked for me. Every turn kept me barely out of sight. The people looking for me were barking orders over a radio, asking someone what was the holdup on the generator kicking on. Whatever the response The hallways stayed dark as I drifted through them, blind but not falling, lost but not being found. When I reached the final door, I opened it into a bright afternoon. My lungs burned a little at the first fresh, recycled air I had breathed in a week. Blinking, I waited for the voice to tell me where to go, but it had fallen silent. I closed the door as panic began to rise in my chest. All this, and I would get caught because I didn't know where to go. I was outside a plain brown building in the middle of nowhere. There was a road going off to the right, and to the left there was Rachel's forest. From her first painting to me, I knew it was the same forest immediately, and not just because of it matching the painting so closely. I had some strange sense that felt like a kind of magnetism, or how birds know which way to fly. Looking around for a second, I felt like I was being pulled when I looked again at those woods. This was right, somehow. I knew this was the way I needed to go. So, I went. I had made it to the edge of the forest when I heard the noise of men coming outside of the building. I thought about hiding, but I knew it was a bad idea. They would just catch me, and I felt like a drive to go deeper into the woods. I plunged ahead, running close to a reckless speed, but never tripping or stumbling as I went. I would occasionally hear a noise behind me as they spread out to search, but the sound grew fainter as I ran. I almost thought I had lost them for good when I heard a short cough that was quickly muffled off to my left. Someone had gotten close without me knowing it. Panicking, I looked for any places I could hide. There were only bushes and trees, and over there, a well. Not just a well, but Rachel's well, with the same worn gray stone walls capped with a weathered wooden lid. I felt a moment of happy recognition, but then it faded. How did that help? They checked the well if they found it, and I didn't have any way to get down it without getting hurt or stuck. Then an idea struck me. Crouching low and staying to the bush, I moved to the well and gingerly pushed on the lid. At first it resisted, but when I pushed a bit harder, the wooden circle slid aside enough that you could clearly see someone moved it. Glancing around, I eased back into the bush as I heard soft footfalls approaching. We need to check this out. You think he went down the well? Better hope not. He'd probably break his neck if he did. And then it's our asses. I could see the two men approaching. Both of them were wearing dark body armor and carried assault rifles. The older of the two shrugged back at the other one. Better that than he was hiding in there and we didn't check. Looking irritated, the younger man nodded. I'll look. He went over to the well and shoved the wooden lid aside, causing it to clatter to the ground. Hitting a button on his rifle, a flashlight sprang to life in the barrel. He started to shine it down into the well as the other continued to look every direction. I was worried if he would see me if I moved, but I couldn't wait. I just had to stay calm, think slow, and move fast. I kept expecting to hear them yell or feel something, or someone strike me in the back, but nothing came. As the afternoon light began to dim, I saw the trees thinning ahead. I was approaching a road. It looked like a normal public road too, with several cars passing one way or the other as I walked out of the forest and up the hill to the asphalt. The idea of hitchhiking, especially this close to where they held me, was frightening, but I saw little choice. I was wearing sweatpants, a t-shirt they had given me, and my own shoes, but I had no money or ID or phone. My only chance was to get far enough away that I could try and get help. I jumped slightly at the hiss of hydraulic brakes as a large semi rolled to a stop next to me. The passenger window rolled down and an older man with white hair and a graying mustache leaned over and peered down at me. You look lost, son. You need a ride? I looked down at the door of the truck. It had a logo that said Martinez and Son Construction and Hauling. Below it was a cartoon man hitting a wall with a sledgehammer. Looking back up, I smiled at him. Yes, sir, I do. I woke up 5 hours later as we pulled into a truck stop somewhere in Nevada. I had planned on staying awake the entire trip, but that only lasted a few minutes before exhaustion took over me. I glanced over at Oliver Martinez as he gave me a toothy grin. I'm tired, but you were plump tuckered out. I've got to fuel up and shower and get some grub. I'm going on to California after that if you want to ride further. Just be back here in an hour. Sounds good? I nodded and thanked him again for the ride as I got out. I felt groggy from sleeping, but otherwise okay. I just needed to decide whether this is a good spot to ask for help or if I should ride with Martinez further. He seemed like a very nice guy and he would probably try to help if he could, but I wanted to avoid putting more people in danger if I could help it. Looking around, I see we were in a fairly nice little town. I decided I would go look around for a few minutes and then decide what to do. I was only 3 blocks down the street when I saw the flickering lights in the distance. It was a movie theater. As I got closer, I felt my chest tightening. It was one from the Rachel's painting. Hey there, welcome to the Phoenix. The guy standing at the candy counter of the theater looked a little younger than me, and while he seemed friendly enough, he also looked slightly concerned. If you're here for the horror double feature, I'm afraid the second movie is about 30 minutes in. I can give you a half rate if you want to see it though. I shook my head and tried not to look as strange and crazy as I felt. No, that's okay. I recognize this place from a picture of a friend of mine painted, so I came in to ask if you knew anything about her. He raised his eyebrows and shrugged. Okay, weird. He smiled and added, weird, but interesting. Who is she? I swallowed. Her name is, well, it was Rachel Donovan. I expected him to look surprised or excited or angry, but I could see right away the name meant nothing to him. Shaking his head, he shrugged again. Sorry, that doesn't ring a bell. I'd say you can ask the owner, but he's on vacation this week. Nodding, I searched my mind for something else to ask. Some way to make this place matter the way her paintings had. Is there anything unique about this place then? Its history or something? The man grinned. Buddy, you're clearly not from here. This place is super boring. Not just the theater, but the whole town. Frowning in thought, he added, the only thing I know about the history of this place is that there used to be a house here that burned down. This was in like the 1920s or 30s when this wasn't even a part of the town. Couldn't tell you the first thing about it beyond that, but I still bet it's the most interesting thing that ever happened here. I let out a disappointed sigh. Okay, well, thanks. I turned to leave when the guy called out again. Hey man, sorry I couldn't help more, but if you come back, I'll get you a discount on a movie. Half off. If I'm not working, tell the marshal said it was okay. I waved and tried to smile as I headed for the door with a heavy heart. Why did you leave me here, Rachel? What's here that would help? I was outside again, staring up at the theater's bright blinking signs as though they were going to give me some kind of secret signal, when I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye. There was an alley that ran alongside the theater and went behind it to something. Whatever it was back there, the light of a distant security lamp cast shadow along the line of the alley, and those shadows were moving. Instead of feeling afraid, I felt excited as I started down the alley. Rachel had led me here, and I just had to trust that there was a reason for it. Keep looking until The shadows were made by leaves blowing on some wind I couldn't feel. As I got to the far end of the alley, I saw there was a small backyard behind the theater, surrounded by a chain-link fence. And on the other side of that fence was the tree from Rachel's painting, with its deep red twisting bark and foam of green leaves waving in the night air. I felt a surge of warmth in my chest as the distant singing happened again. This was the place, the special tree that could not be found unless it wanted you to find it. It sat at the edge of the small, overgrown lot surrounded on all sides by buildings and backyards. Somehow forgotten when whatever this place had once been was divided up. And despite its location, I had a strong sense that I was the first to see it in a very long time. Climbing the fence, I felt a jagged wire dig into my leg and rip my pants as I fell over the top. I was bleeding a little, but I hardly noticed. I could smell the tree now, and it was a rich, good smell, unlike anything I had smelled before. Reaching out to it, I felt the singing grow louder as I touched it. I felt stronger and less afraid then, and when I saw the light opening up at its roots, I didn't tremble. I smiled. There was a hidden tunnel underneath the tree, a tunnel filled with sweet-smelling air that was like the tree smell but also different. The tunnel wasn't dark, no, not at all. It glowed with its own golden light that called to me, urged me forward. Rain was beginning to fall as I looked around the dark lot. I thought I was leaving this world behind. And I found that I didn't mind at all. The tunnel had continued to grow, slanting down gently and tall enough that I walked in without stooping. The roots of the tree went on, woven through the dirt's walls as I went deeper. I looked back and saw the tunnel had closed behind me, but I wasn't surprised. The way forward was the only way that mattered. I walked for what might have been hours, but I never felt tired or hungry, and I never worried I was lost, though I had no idea where I was or where I was going. Still, I felt a surge of happiness and excitement when I turned a corner and saw something in the tunnel ahead. As I got closer, I realized it was a brick wall, but just as I began to think I had found a dead end, the wall faded away, revealing a dark room. I paused at the edge of the tunnel, looking out at the floor of what looked like a basement. It was empty, but in the light from the tree I could make out something scratched onto the wall. It was the number 2. I felt my pulse quicken as I thought back to Rachel's painting with the theater seats, and then I stepped out into the room. It was the empty basement of a house, and as I went up the stairs and opened the door, I saw that the rest of the house was empty as well. No lights were on, but bright sunlight poured in through every window, and in the distance I could hear what sounded like a small wave crashing on a beach. I wanted to go out to see where I was, but I forced myself to check the house, first for any people or clues, but there were none. The house was utterly bare of any signs of people other than the number scratched onto the floor below. My nose tingled with salty air as I stepped outside. The house was near the beach on what I soon figured out was the small deserted island, and I realized with little surprise that I recognized the house from Rachel's painting. As I stepped off the porch, I saw no signs of people, but I wasn't entirely alone, because sitting in some distance from the house was a tree. I knew it couldn't be the same tree as in the abandoned lot, but at the same time I knew that it was, or at least a different part of the same tree that made the tunnels and appeared in my old world, or whatever place this was. Because I had started having that thought as soon as I stepped out of the house, I didn't think this was my world. Not exactly. I could see a larger island in some distance away, and it might have people on it. Hotels, cars, and planes. Or it might not, as those things might not exist here. Either way, my newfound intuition was growing stronger, and I could tell that what was it called? The con, no, The texture of things was different somehow, if only a little. Not bad or scary, just different. Still, after a couple of hours exploring the island and checking the house, I began to feel terribly lonely. Even with a tree nearby, I decided to go back into the tunnel and kept going. The basement wall faded away as I walked up to it, and I entered the tunnels again. It was only a short time later that I found my second version of the house. Much like the first, the wall faded away into a basement, but this was far from empty. It was a workshop of some kind, full of tools I wasn't familiar with. I glanced down and saw 43 scratched onto the floor. Who was doing that, and why? I was going to explore the house more carefully this time, as it looked like there were people here, but then I froze. Propped against the brick wall, next to a small stack of boards, was a sledgehammer. Trying to be quiet, I crept over and picked it up before heading back into the tunnel. When I was little, before Daddy died, he had loved to hunt. I never went with him and didn't remember much of what he hunted, but I do know he had an old hound he had since I was born. The dog had only loved him, well, him and being on the trail of something. When Rocker, his name was Rockefeller, got a scent, it was like he was in a trance. He would go and go, this way and that. And to look like him, it looked like he was having a fit, both lost and certain at the same time. But whatever Rocker knew or didn't know, he always found what he was looking for. I felt like Rocker now. I was moving faster and faster as I went down this tunnel, and that I felt like I was on a trail of something, or traveling on memories I didn't have. Gripping the sledgehammer tightly, I could hear the rising hum of distant music in my head as I turned the last corner, and then it fell silent. There was another brick wall, and as I approached, it fell away. It was another basement room, but this one was much smaller. It contained a table, a clothes chest, and an old metal bed that had been broken apart. At the far brick wall, a woman was using one of the metal legs from the bed to attack the wall and whatever lay behind it. I felt my head begin to swim as I looked at her from behind, and then she turned to look at me, eyes wide with surprise, and I felt the sledgehammer slip from her grip as I stumbled back against the now solid wall. I could barely breathe at all, but I managed to get out a single word. Rachel? The woman looked at me, her expression less fearful but still guarded. She had the bad leg partially raised in warning. Yeah, do I know you? It was her, but it wasn't. Much like the tree on the island, this Rachel looked a few years older, and while she looked stressed and confused at the moment, her eyes didn't seem weighted down by the same quiet sadness I had come to recognize. Watching the other Rachel for that time, still, I didn't know how to answer her question and not sound creepy or crazy. I stared at her for a second, floundering, when she asked another. You came out of the tree tunnel, right? I nodded, grateful for something I could answer easily. Studying me, she said, Where did you come from? Before the tunnel, I mean. I flushed as I tried to think of the right words. Well, I came from Texas, originally, I mean. She grinned at me for a second before catching herself and trying to look serious again. Yeah, okay, but like, do you know how the tree works? How did you find out about the tunnel? How did you get here? Sighing, I rubbed my head and just started into it. Look, I know this will sound crazy, but I had a job watching a woman trapped in a room, and that woman was you, or another version of you, and she asked me for help, and I couldn't help her, and then they took me, and I found out she's been dead for a long time, but could see me in the future, and then they put something from the tree in me that had been in her that killed her, And then I escaped, and then I figured out where to go to find a tree from things she had painted, and then I somehow knew how to go into the tunnels to find different spots, and I'm pretty sure the tunnels lead to different worlds, and then I got the sledgehammer, and then I... Hold up. God damn, take a breath. You're going to pass out. She was smiling again, and this time she didn't try to hide it. She looked over what was left of the bed where the sledgehammer was laying on the floor. And did you say sledgehammer? So yeah, I believe you. I've been in those tunnels too. My boyfriend tricked me into moving here so he could tie me into the tree in his place. Well, not tie me to the tree literally, take his place as... What? The tree's buddy or something? I don't really know. It was all pretty fucked up, and I don't understand all of it. But what I do understand is that the fucker walled me up in here. At first I thought I could just pry loose some bricks over time, but nope, he put a layer of concrete on the outside this time. Good old Phil, or Justin, or whatever. I merely think of it as fuckface now. This is taking forever. I stepped up and put my hand on the sledgehammer. Let me do it for a bit. We can take turns. We had cleared away even more brick than she had already imagined, but the concrete wall was only starting to show a small crack. I wanted to keep looking at her, have her talk to me, but I knew she was tired. She nodded reluctantly and let go of the hammer. Before I swung, I looked back at her. How long have you been in here like this? Rachel scowled. It's hard to say for sure, but I think about 8 months. I let the hammer drop down again as my eyes widened. How did you survive all that time? Her scowl deepened. It's the tree. It won't let me die. I just dip into the tunnel every day for a bit. But I never get that hungry or thirsty. A thought occurred to me then. Why didn't you just escape through the tunnels? She quickly shook her head. No, thank you. I've had enough of seeing other worlds. Some of them aren't so nice, and I don't want to be more tied up to the tree than I already am. I just want out of here, into my own world, and then I can try to figure out how to get free of my connection to the tree for good. Rachel shrugged. I would have done it eventually with the stupid bed parts, but who knows how long it would have taken. She smiled again. I'm very happy you came to help and brought a sledgehammer with you. Returning her smile, I nodded as I lifted the hammer again. Me too. We were both wringing with sweat when we crawled through the hole we made in the outer wall. Rachel told me that she thought her ex-boyfriend was long gone, but she couldn't be sure, so we had to be careful. Grabbing the sledgehammer from inside the room, we made our way towards the stairs. The house was decorated, but quiet, and we saw no signs of anyone as we walked to the front door and opened it. Outside, the sun was coming up on a new day, and as we walked out onto the porch, I jumped a little as Rachel took my hand and gave it a squeeze. I looked over at her. I hadn't been able to help other Rachel, but maybe that had never been the point at all. Because I thought now she had been able to see more than just other places or the future. She had been able to see into other worlds and possibilities. Like this one, where another version of hers was trapped and needed help. A place where I wouldn't be hunted and she could be free in the end. Even when she knew she was dying, Rachel had been determined to help us be together and happy. The morning sun painted beautiful colors on Rachel's face, and looking into her eyes, I saw how much she was like the woman I had watched and cared about and tried to save. The woman who, in the end, had saved me instead. I wanted to tell Rachel so many things, ask her so many questions, but all that would come later. Squeezing her hand back, I walked with her away from the house. And that was the end of the whole story, for now, with her away from the house. And that was the end of the whole story, for now. The first and the second part was pretty good, in my opinion. Third part was Well, it started playing mind tricks with our main character here, Thomas. But then it went on to a supernatural one, and then they talked about a tree. I mean, who knows what the tree does, and like what was Rachel's intention from the start. Maybe it was to try to keep them together and be happy, or maybe it's just the character overthinking. You know, Thomas overthinking everything. You never know. I would give this story a solid 8.5 out of 10. It has really, really good potential, and I hope we can see more from it. But I just wished it stayed on to the creepy aspect of it and not supernatural, where it's like there's powers and all that stuff. Some parts of it were pretty funny. Some parts were scary. But all in all, it was a very memorable story. Well, it was fun seeing you guys. And let me know what else I should read in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe and turn on notification. I'll try to do this every week if I can. And if this is the first video you clicked on, go back to my other video, my first video, and it will talk about the first two parts, which in my opinion is the best two parts. This was a long one. Wow, an hour. I hope you guys enjoyed, and you have a great day. Peace out.